What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the Vicktory Life Legacy Spotlight. Today, I have a young man I've known for a long, long time, seen him grow into a special person, a special talent, a leader, and a mentor. Hall of Fame, recently inducted Hall of Fame football player, Chris Garrett. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me, man. I'm doing real good. How you doing?
I'm blessed, man. I'm doing great, man. I'm honored to have you on the show, man, because like I just said, I've known you and your father. I've known you since you were young, and I've seen your journey from youth football to Unity Reed, formerly known as Stonewall Jackson High School. And then Ohio, I saw you play against my Hokies in college. I saw you play Canadian Football League. And now you're a businessman, an entrepreneur, a mentor. It is just great to have you on, man. This has been a long time coming. You were on one of my lists to get you on, man. So I'm honored to have you on. Chris, man, I saw you smile just now when I said recently inducted Hall of Fame. As I was talking to you offline, my daughter was at the Unity Reed game yesterday against Woodbridge, and she was texting me the updates. And then she said, "Oh, Dad, Chris Garrett's here. They're doing something for him." And then she mentioned Raymond G. I said, "Sydney, he's going into the Hall of Fame." And she was like, "Oh my goodness, that's crazy." You know what I'm saying? So we're going to talk about that a little bit more, but real quickly, man, how does that feel?
Words, honestly, man, words really can't describe it because it's still fresh. But I know when I look back in the next 5 to 10 years, it's going to mean a lot. Not saying it doesn't mean a lot now, but it's just one of those things. I'm in the moment. But just to be in that atmosphere and to be recognized for something I did as a teenager, you know, that is one of those things where, you know, first thing I did was I called my dad and was like, "Hey, you know, the Hall of Fame thing is going on." He's like, and he knew about it. It's just the fact that, you know, he had some other things to do, but he wanted to join him. But it's one of those special moments where, you know, I could hear him smiling through the phone, like, "Hey, all that hard work, you know, it paid off and people recognize it." So, you know, it's one of those, you know, those feelings that I can't describe, but it's a good feeling, you know, to be a part of, you know, be a part of a group of people that did something that put Stonewall or Unity Reed on the map. You know, you know, it's just one of those feelings that I can't describe right now, but it's definitely good though.
No question. No, I know it is, man. So you mentioned your dad. Let's before we dive into your phenomenal college and high school career and pro career in depth, I always ask my guests to talk about where it all started, because I think people watching this, some people met you later in your life, you know, as far as they met you when you were at Unity Reed, or they met you when you were in the CFL. But everybody, whether you're an athlete or not, it starts somewhere, and it starts when you're young. Take us back to when you really got into sports, and what sports did you play, and who influenced you? Who got you, you know, to the point where, you know, you're going to do this, I'm going to help you get there?
Whew. All right. So everything started back in New York, because that's where I'm originally from, Utica, New York. You know, shout out to them. But my mom and my dad are the ones that got me into sports. Biggest thing is, like, I started out in karate. That was
Karate.
Yeah, man. I did karate as a younger man. Like, that was just so that my mom could get me, you know, acclimated, getting tough and trying to try different things. But, you know, just having them, you know, taking me to swimming lessons, karate, basketball, football, you know, stuff like that, you know, so they kind of pointed me in the right direction. But a lot of it is just, you know, growing up in the inner city, you know, a lot of kids, you know, wanted to play sports outside. So it's one of the things, when you want to make friends, like, you gotta go out on that, you know, on that limb to get out there. So I think a lot of it came from, you know, my parents big time. And another part of it came from my surroundings and the people that I was around, because it's one of those things where if you don't play, then what are you doing? You know, so it's a lot different now, but back in the day, you know, you got to get outside and, you know, get your clothes dirty a little bit, play some sports. But, you know, all my kudos go to my mom and my dad for getting me pointed in the right direction.
Weren't your parents athletes themselves?
Yes. Oh, yeah. So my mom, she ran track. She was actually I think she was all state in track, and that was up in New York too. She was a cheerleader also, so she did those sports. And then my dad, we had this like open debate on who's a better athlete, but he already know who's a better athlete. But he played basketball, and believe it or not, he played quarterback in high school. So
I did know that. I did know that.
Yeah. So he was a good athlete, but at the end of the day, like for him to play, basketball, football, and run track, I feel like I got a little bit from that, but I extended it even further. So, he gonna see this, he gonna laugh.
Yeah, no, he will. And shout out to your parents, especially your dad, man. What a blessing to have parents that invested in you. And your dad, man, I remember, especially when you were playing youth and high school sports, I would always run into him. He's a great conversationalist. I always felt like every time I left talking to your father, I felt like I was wiser. Like he was just built on wisdom. He kept it real with you. He looked you in your eyes. And it wasn't anything degrading. It was always intense, but loving and passionate conversation, much bigger than sports. And he had an influence on me. I don't know if he knows that, but I'm glad he'll see this and know that. Because at that time, I'm older than you, but I'm younger than him. And he would always talk to me because I was kind of into my career trying to transition into what I'm doing now. So God bless your parents, man. So to come from that environment, and to come from New York, you come here to Northern Virginia, which is fast-paced, but it's not New York. But at the same time, it's competitive around here. This area has a lot of great athletes. You were part of a golden era where Prince William County was starting to boom and new schools and people were moving here, including myself. And you find yourself in the mix, man. So did you play? A lot of guys around here play youth ball. Some guys got started late. Did you find a team or did you just play later in high school? What happened with that?
So I moved here when I was 12, going on 13. And it's one of those things where my father, he relocated down here. So that's why I moved down here. Mm-hmm. It's one of those things where I started in the GMFL league. And my first team was the Buccaneers. And I didn't know nobody. So my thing was, since, my parents are divorced and my dad relocated and he didn't see me play in person, up until 12, 13 years old. So my thing was like, hey, I got to put on, I'm not from here. These dudes is country probably like they, so my thing was like, being in that atmosphere, I had to set the tone because I didn't want people to think I was soft. Oh, you from New York? So my thing was like off rip. I was out there smacking cats. I was out there, running for touchdowns. So it was one of those things where I made a splash on the scene to where it's like, okay, he's all right. But we got other guys that we believe in because we seen them grow into it. And I didn't take nothing about that. I just knew whenever I got, my chance, I'm gonna take spam and take it and make it into filet mignon. So, and that's something that I did with my whole career. But we'll probably talk about that later on too. But just starting with in the GMFL and playing with some of the guys that I actually played with in high school, and just seeing through the ranks on how some of the guys turned out. Some guys were good and some guys didn't pan out. But just starting there and just get my feet wet, just being in Northern Virginia and playing football. And just seeing the level of play compared to New York. Back then, coming from New York, playing football there, they were more competitive. And because, again, I was in the inner city, so everything was more grimy and just more aggressive. So when I came here, I was really aggressive and I was just different. So when I came and played this pace of ball, I was just dominating. And it was one of the things like, man, is it that easy or was I really that good? Because when I was in New York, I don't want to say I was average, but it was some real dogs. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, when I came here, it was like I was that dog that came from that place. Now it's just like, I got to prove myself and make a name. So that was one of the things where, starting off in the GMFL and really excelling my first year to the point where they made a rule that I couldn't touch the ball more than 8 times a game because
hold on.
Yeah.
Sorry, a rule.
Yeah.
That you couldn't touch the ball. Hold on, explain this to us.
It was that real.
I did not know that. Wait a minute. I'm sorry. That resonated with me. There was a rule you couldn't touch the ball 8 times, more than 8 times a game because of what?
So I forget who the commissioner of the GMFL was at the point or at the moment, but he actually told my coach, hey, like, y'all like beating teams really bad. And like this dude, every time he touched the ball, like you gotta give other people chances. So my thing was like, because I play offense and defense. So, it was one of the things where it was like, hey, look, Chris, like you can't touch the ball more than this time. Like we gotta get John some more touches or this person. I'm thinking to myself, like, don't you want to win? So it's one of the things like me as a kid hearing that, I was kind of like, dang. But then my dad broke it down to me. He was like, that's respect. Because they know every time you touch the ball, like you going, like something big gonna happen. And I do want to make a correction. My second team was the Buccaneers. My first team was the Mustangs. So my bad on that.
That's okay. No, who I know we're gonna touch on your high school career because you said a lot of those guys played with you, youth league and in high school. Who else was on that youth league team with you that ended up going to high school with you? Just take us back to some of your teammates that were there in that youth league. Because I heard about that youth league. I went to games, and now, as you know as well, it's split up.
Right.
Now it's all more so low about proximity. So you have the east side with the Woodbridge, Dale City teams. Then you have AYF and the Gainesville Grizzlies. They're in a different one. It used to be all one in Prince William County. But who was on your team that you remember that was also tough on you?
From league?
Yeah, from the league. From youth league.
On my team, it was a cat. So when I first moved here, they was like, yo, Crunch is nice. Crunch. I'm like, who is this Crunch dude they keep talking about? Like, who's this cat? And so it was Anthony Bratton. So so I promise it's one of the things where if he would have stayed at Stonewall, then I think he could have probably went to a bigger school, but he went to Delaware State, I believe, or Delaware, Blue Hens. But shout out to him. But he was another one where, it was almost like a 1-2 punch to where I knew when I first got down here and I seen him and like I kind of knew who he was. I knew that he was another dog. And some like you like and like when you're around certain people, like are you about that life or are you just like I want the look? But he was one of the ones that like through league ball, middle school, high school, like he was one of those dudes like, yeah, he's actually like of that pedigree that I'm a part of. So but other than that, like as far as league, like on my team, yeah, he the only one. I mean, everybody not and like I don't want to discredit anybody else, but like if you ask anybody else about him and about his career, like they'll say the same thing. Like, boy was nice. I give him his credit.
Cool. No, that's what's up, man. So you were killing in the youth league, and like every young man or woman, when you in the youth league, you want to get to high school because high school varsity especially is the mecca before you get to college. So that's when you really know, because you and I both know, even the people watching your Legacy Spotlight that have played sports or competed in anything, we get to high school, you kind of see, okay, Shorty was nice in youth ball, but high school, he or she faded away. And then you see people say, yo, he was really good in youth ball, but now against the district, he's killing it. You end up going to Stonewall, right? And at the time, who was the coach?
Dude named Jim Powell.
Yep.
And it's funny because I seen him for the first time in over 10 years because he got inducted to the Hall of Fame also. And,
yesterday he did?
Yeah.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where he actually ended up, going to OP for different reasons to coach. But, just seeing him yesterday, like when I saw him and he seen me, like he just smiled, like, and he came over to me and like he got a little limp. He was limping over to me and like gave me a big hug. And I'm like, and the first thing I was just like, I appreciate you. He's like, no, something like what you did in your career, I couldn't have, seen that coming. And then I cut him off and I was like, something, however, your tenure ended, it doesn't matter because you gave me that shot when I was a freshman, soaking wet, 145 pounds. You started me on, like you started me because you seen something in me that other people would have probably been like, nah, he too small. Like, but I gave him his roses because at the end of the day, like if he would have just sat me, then I never would have had that confidence that I could, that I can play at this level a lot sooner. So, I was just one of the things where, I told him like, I appreciate you for, looking out for me and giving me the opportunity, to start my career as a freshman. And it's one of the things where, he was like, I'd do it 1,000 times again, because what you did with it, like you basically took something and you ran with it. So, just to see him and like the guy that kind of like kickstart everything, that was pretty cool to see too. So,
Yeah, what a great deal, man. And congrats to Coach Powell. And I'm glad you mentioned him, because I did that question on purpose, because when I really started paying more attention to Unity Reed, known as Stonewall at the time, he was on his way out. And people remember Lauren Johnson because, obviously he came in with the bang and he's doing great things at Highland Springs. But there's a misconception that he was there your whole time. And yeah, exactly. So that's why I wanted to make sure we gave a shout out to Coach Powell, and also the fact that you came in and played right away as a freshman, which for those watching, again, I want to really say this because I think there's this assumption that, oh, yeah, well, just because someone's good in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, they're going to start or play on varsity. And that, whether it's the 80s, 70s, 90s, or now, that is not the truth, especially with the talent you guys had coming in. You played right away, bro. Like, were you shook or what?
Nah. I tell you this. I played in 2 freshman games. And this is funny because I remember the teams I played against. And anybody that was on my team or that was around then, they can vouch for this 100%. My first game, we played against Brentsville. So it's like whatever. I had 3 sacks. I had 3 sacks, and I had 4 touchdowns. Like one of those things where like reverse field, and I'm just outrunning everybody, and they're looking like that's just Brentsville, whatever. So then we had a game to where I think it was it Woodbridge? Yeah, it was Woodbridge. And it was funny because another cat, Andre Bratton, he was on the freshman team back then too. And he was another dude that ended up being cold for Woodbridge, going on to play for Miami, Ohio. And I played against him in college too. But just playing against Woodbridge, and like back then, all the teams in like Woodbridge, like they were bigger, faster, and stronger because a lot of them came from, military families. So they have a little more discipline. But back then, in my eyes, I'm thinking like, okay, this is more my speed. So same thing against them. I'm over there playing like LeVar Arrington. I'm lit like really though, like, back when LeVar Arrington was jumping over the line and stuff, ask my I was doing the same stuff because
the LeVar Lee.
Yes, like I was doing stuff like that. Like people like, how, like, what is he doing? Like how, like, and the same thing on offense. Like it's funny to this day. I got guys like anytime something comes up, they're like, yo, you was a beast, bro. Like in middle school, high school, like you was that dude. And these are from guys that I played against. And my thing is like, when you're in it, you're not going to give nobody their credit. But after the fact, they're like, bro, you was our scouting report. So just to bring it back, I played in a scrimmage versus Brentsville, had 4 touchdowns, some sacks. It's all right. Well, let's see what we do next week. Then did damn near the same thing against a tougher opponent. And from that day, Jim Powell was like, you're gonna be playing on varsity. So I'm like, all right, cool. And at the time we had a dude named Marquise Williams. Marquise was about 6 foot, 200 pounds. So he was, he fit the bill. So my thing was like, I might not play as much, like, but I just want to be up here. Like me being from middle school, a couple of games on freshman, and now I'm on varsity. And it was one of those things where he announced it in front of the team, like, hey, and at the point, because I was a smaller kid, but he was like, he called me Peanut back then. And he was like, hey, everybody, look, we're going, Peanut is going to start. People was like, what? I'm like myself, like, what? What you mean? I was telling him Marquise, like, what? But it's one of those things where like, it didn't take long, but a lot of times when, I think I did enough in my short career to create a buzz. And it's one of those things where that I teach my younger athletes, like, you got to perform every week because what you did last week, people talk about it, but now they want to see if you can do it again. And that's one of the things. So that's when I think one of the things that kind of helped me, get on the team. And then what helped me solidify my spot was then it was one of those things where, I just basically took my opportunity. Like I got a couple carries and I made big runs out of them. So, it kind of like matriculated out of that for the most part.
Yeah. hearing you talk, I know about, your numbers and your shine. I didn't really realize you played defense as well.
Yeah, I was all mad. Oh, my bad.
No, it's okay. You can remind everybody, including me, because I knew you as a playmaker on offense, but on defense, what positions did you play again?
Well, I played rover. So look, Coach Johnson, he was one of those dudes, like, he called me the Joker because I can play anywhere. So it's one of those things where I played corner, I played safety, I played rover. I played all over because one of the things was he was just like, you are our best athlete. Whoever their best athlete is, receiver, whatever, you on them. And Coach Johnson will vouch for this. I don't think many people caught the ball on me, if any. It was literally clamps. So it was one of the things where I was blitzing a lot. I was covering. So I was like a Tyrann Mathieu before him. And it was one of the things where, I feel like Coach Johnson relied on me a lot because he taught me the knowledge of playing defense and understanding, certain things and reading keys and being athletic. All you need to do is just understand and then just play fast. So, I pretty much played all over the place for him on defense.
And you mentioned Lauren Johnson, my teammate at Virginia Tech, longtime friend and brother, who's now the head coach at Highland Springs. But Lauren Johnson was coaching in the Roanoke, Southwest Virginia area. He comes to Stonewall to coach you and Ryan and those guys. What year was that for you? And what was it like? Two questions. What year was that for you? And what was it like having Coach Powell, who kind of gave you your jump start and you credit for getting you on the scene? And then a young coach in Lauren Johnson, who reminds me a lot of your dad, that comes in and is outspoken, intense. What was that change like? And what year was that for you when he came?
That was, so I tell you this, that was after we went 0-10 my sophomore year. And the thing about that is too, like, I still ran for 1,000 yards on an 0-10 team. So that's another story for another time. But after my sophomore year, we went 0-10. They got rid of Coach Powell and they brought in, I think Coach Johnson was 26, 27, maybe 28, in that range.
He was young.
So yeah, he was young. So it's one of those things where, like, and it's funny because I told this story yesterday because I was doing like a little tour through the school, and we went through the second floor auditorium, and it's funny because that's where we had our first meeting with Coach Johnson, and it was one of those things where he basically made his presence known big time by just, I tell you this, a lot of us would sit in the back talking, like just lounging around and stuff. And he came into the room and he threw something or he punched the chalkboard and it made a really loud noise. And I can't say what he said, but he got our attention. And he was like, that's the reason why y'all losing, because half of y'all want to sit in the back of the classroom. Y'all talking, y'all think y'all know it all. Yada, yada, yada. That's the PG-13, version.
Yeah, the modified version. Yes.
Yeah, but, like from day one, he made it believable that we could be better than what was put on us already. Coach Powell did what he could do, but I think experience kind of pushes you over. And Coach Johnson was just like fresh off the league. I think it was the Cowboys or one of the practice squad teams he was on. Like, he got released and then he was like fresh into it. So you can tell the passion. So and for him to come from, the NFL and being all Big East and all that good stuff, like, my thing is, like, I prided myself on listening to those that had done it before. Not saying that I discredited people that didn't do it, but my thing is, like, if you did it, I'm really gonna be open to you. And he was one of those guys that, like, took me under his wing and challenged me every single day, mentally, physically, and spiritually, because, it was one of those things where it wasn't always about football with him. And that's what kind of made me like him even more, because he cared about me as a person. And you can tell it because he knew football was going to take care of football. But, how's your dad? How you doing this? And then I tell you this, he's the first person that made me understood what a GPA was.
Yes.
And I didn't understand that until, like, when he got there. And I'm thinking, like, GPA, like, I'm going D1. He's like, you ain't going nowhere if these grades ain't right. And my grades wasn't where they need to be. But by him pointing it out to me, made me focus and buckle down. and be more mature in that aspect, you know? So it was one of the things, like, he was like Coach Johnson was like more like a big brother in that aspect. And, you know, he really guided me in the right direction from, you know, the experience aspect and just basically understanding what I wanted. And he did his best, which it worked, to get me where I need to go.
No doubt, no doubt. So, Chris, you mentioned Lauren Johnson and how he came and he set the tone. I'm gonna share a story with you where he told me, he shared with me when I used to come over there and check you guys out, because you know me and Lauren go back, LJ. As the season progressed and workouts and you guys played a few games, he told me in confidence, you know, you always ask, you know, who should I keep an eye on? He told me you might be one of the best players, not just on the team, but in the state. Like, he was adamant. And Lauren is a straight shooter. He's honest in his assessment. He told me back then, he was like, you know, everybody knew about Ryan Williams, but he said you and Ryan Williams and the other kid, Thigpen, were very known. But he said Chris Garrett might be the best player out of all of them. And that's high praise, because that team, once you guys got to buy into his culture and you guys built something, was really good. You guys lost in states. But at the same time, when you hear him say that now, you didn't really hear him, but you're hearing it through me. How does that make you? How does that make you feel?
Man, just to like, he was one of those dudes where I kind of adopted his mindset a little bit, to where even if you do something good, like, you keep your head down, you keep working. So whenever I did something good, he called me Thaddeus, because that's what my immediate family and friends call me. He's like, hey, Thaddeus, like, hey, bud, you can do this better. I'm like, Coach, I ran for 200 yards and I had a pick. He's like, hey, but you missed a tackle, or you missed that block. I'm like, myself, like, damn, man, like, I can't get no slack. But to understand, and for him to say that behind closed doors, it's the same thing with my dad. Like, he would hold me accountable, and it'll be more mental. Like, hey, you had a good game, but at the same time, you could have did X, Y, and Z. And my thing is, like, I had people saying, like, hey, bro, you good, da-da-da, you know, but that's not what I need to hear. But to hear that he spoke that highly of me, you know, I'd be lying if I said I knew he felt that way. I knew he knew that I was good, and I knew he knew how much I sacrificed to get to the level where I got to. But to hear that, man, like, you know, that's a lot coming from him. High praise, because he gave you praise, but it's one of those things where, now get back to work. So it's one of those things where, you know, to hear that, man, like, that's a lot, you know, because anytime, if he says something to me, or if he called me, it don't matter what time, or if you call me, and like, if you're saying something, like, I listen. I don't care what it is. It can be talking about how to make a sandwich. But at the end of the day, it's like, I have high respect for you and him. But to hear that from him, that he said to you in confidence, you know, that speaks volumes. And, like, you know, I'm just like, wow, that's what's up, though.
Yeah, no, I mean, him and Ryan were close. You know, I know they kept the relationship going, you know, and I know really when I run into people even now, decade later, I still remember kids that played for Coach Lauren Johnson at the time in Stonewall, and they have the same mindset as far as how much they appreciated him and his coaching staff. I know Robbie Carter was a part of that staff. There were other guys that were there. That was a great coaching staff. And,
Yes.
you know, Ryan was special. You were special. I mentioned you guys lost in states to Hilton. It was a controversial call. Was that your senior year?
Yes.
Yeah. So what I remember is you guys were on a run. And I said, man, these jokers about to win state. And I remember being at that game. It was a controversial call. And Hilton at the time, especially that time, they were
a powerhouse.
They were a powerhouse. And they were supposed to win it. You guys came out of nowhere. Now, people knew you and Ryan and other people on that team from the youth league. So Manassas was very familiar with the talent. But like you mentioned, Coach Powell 0-10 and Lauren building something. He was new. He's not from Northern Virginia. He's not even from Virginia. So he was a new person. All of a sudden, your senior year, you guys pop up on the scene and y'all winning. I mean, the whole entire coach has changed, and y'all play Hilton. You can speak freely. This is your legacy spotlight, man. That call, that game. Take us back to that moment.
I remember we had a play, and it was designed for Ryan. And it's so funny because we were like, me and him were on the field at the same time, and I was a decoy, and it was one where it was like I had to fake go left and do my fake, all this other stuff, and like it brought two defenders with me, which left it open for him. And all I remember is that Ricky Milbourne, he passed the ball to Ryan, and Ryan had a one-on-one, and like one-on-one with Ryan, like can't nobody nah. So I remember I'm running and I'm watching the play, and I see Ryan get the ball, and he just ran on the field. Man, it was one of those where, it's one of those feelings. I'm like, yes, like I'm running down the field, I'm happy, and then I'll go and tackle and all that stuff. I'm like, yo, we did it, yeah, like. And then we look back, and it's a flag on the ground. We like, oh, come on, like, nah, they try to play us. So they call holding on one of our players, and when they called it, it was like after the fact, like he scored. It was almost like a conversation between the refs, like, yeah, that's what happened. So it was one of those like deflating feelings. I'm like, dang. So then we had one more play after that, and then Coach Johnson was like, look, man, we're gonna have to, do a trick play. And it's a play that we practiced. It was like a double reverse, and the ball ended up in Ryan's hand again. Like he had the option to throw it or pass it. I mean, to throw it or run it. And it was one of those things where I had a route where I had like a little wheel route up the sideline to where he can throw it back to me. Or I think it was Josh Beard that had like a post corner that he could hit him on, or he can just run it. So it was one of the things where, we just ran out of time and ran out of real estate. And it was where, like, Ryan, he had an opportunity to make plays, but, at that time, Hilton had they had a lot of good athletes. And it just so happened that it ended on a fluke play like that, to where we had to resort to a trick play that worked, but it didn't work. But the play before that, like, can't nobody tell me that we didn't beat them that day. Like, every time I see a teammate that was on my team back then, or I see somebody. Matter of fact, I seen Jackie Watkins last night. He was the Stonewall guy that transferred. And I was like, bro, you cost me a state championship, because if you never would have left, then it would have made everything a little more easier. But that's neither here to say. But a lot of guys jumped ship when we went 0-10, but I stuck with it. But just having something taken away, like, that hurt more than almost anything in my career, as far as like playing and winning all that stuff, because I didn't play some big games. So for that to happen as a kid, like, I was hurt, even though I knew I was going D1 and I already signed to go to Clemson. And that's another thing that we'll probably get into.
Yeah, we definitely gonna get into that.
Yeah. So it's one of the things like I knew I was going to go, that I had more football to play, but just to play with my brothers at the time, like that hurt the most, because I knew I was going to play, but a lot of them wasn't going to play more. So I felt bad because they wasn't going to get a chance to play again. So yeah, like that junk hurt. Even to this day, it's still staying.
Nah, it's always gonna be like that. I listen, from one OG to a young one, it's always gonna be like that, because you put so much into it. It's just like anything. If you're in a competitive situation, I mean, this is your spotlight, but I remember games I lost on the 1 yard line. Like, I see it now, and I'm like, man, if we just did this, you can go back, because it means so much, and that's a good thing. And I teach my kids that, like, if it's going to hurt, that's a good thing, even though it hurts, because you guys were a really good team. And it was great for me, because I followed you, and I went to some of your games the year you guys went 0-10. And I remember sitting there. I'm going to be honest with you. I know some of your teammates are going to see this, or guys that transferred. My wife was a Stonewall grad, along with a lot of her friends and people that are now my friends. And I sat there, coming from where I'm from in Hampton High, where it was state or bust. And I'm looking like, man, y'all 0-10, but look at these guys over here laughing, looking in the crowd. People talking about what's the move tonight. Y'all fumbled. They walk off the field. Nobody cares. It wasn't you, but it was some of your teammates. So to see a few years later the transformation that took place, it was good, and it was actually great. I do want to ask you this about your career at Stonewall, now Unity Reed High School. Was there a game, and I love asking this question, was there a game, and I know this may be tough, when you were like, hey, Vic, I was in my bag that night? Like, was there a game when you were like, listen, nobody was going to stop me? Offense, defense, like, was it against, Garfield? Was it against, Osborne? Was there a game you were like, hey, listen, when I tell you I was the best player on the field, I was killing them? Is there a game on high school that comes to mind?
Man, I got a bunch, but one that sticks out from the offensive side, I'll say it had to be against Forest Park. And that's just one of the teams that I knew I was going to beat up on anyways. But I remember it was the game after Jamal Lewis. Was it Jamal Lewis? He played for the Ravens, running back.
Yes.
He ran for he broke the Jim Brown's. Yeah.
The single game rushing record.
Yeah. So I seen that performance. I'm like, man, we got Forest Park. I'm gonna rush for 300 yards. And my dad was like, you ain't gonna do that. I'm like, all right, cool. When I mean, like, I was in like Madden mode, like, man, I'm gonna do the spin move. I don't know if it's gonna work. As I'm running, I'm doing this. Man, I hit a spin move. Okay, that worked. I see another dude. I see his leverage. Another spin move, and then I juke another. I'm like, okay, I'm about to kill these dudes. But from that, it's like, I think that game I averaged, like, on my carries, I averaged like 13 yards a carry, and I had 280 some yards a carry or something like that. And like Coach Johnson, like, I could have had more than that, but that was the point where like he was letting like other people get their rocks off too, because he was like, hey, we don't want nothing bad to happen. Not saying, try to hold me back, but it's like, hey, you already got 4 touchdowns. Like, we got next week. Let some of the other teammates, like, so I didn't get mad, but my thing was like, that was where I had like that whole Bruce Leeway glow where I'm like, I can do anything and it's working. But as far as like defense, I think my best defensive output was, I had a few games where I had a couple picks, but OP at they field, I had a couple picks, one for a touchdown for like 7 yards, and then another one versus Woodbridge at their homecoming my senior year. I had 2 picks for a touchdown, and it was one of those things. Yeah, so it's one of the things where like I can pick a couple where, I'm just out of body experience, because it's like Coach Johnson prepared me so well that I didn't have to think. I'm just going. And even when I did think, the game was like slowed down so much. Like my thoughts was like just how we talking. That's how I felt I was talking to myself and just doing stuff. But at the same time, everything was going quick. But man, like I definitely like the Forest Park game. I had over 280 yards plus running. That was like one of my bag games, bag games. And another one versus Garfield at Garfield. It was raining, and I put up in like, again, this is when Garfield was, they had dogs on their team. That's when they had Clint Stenton. He went to UVA. Simpson. And I remember running against them, and back then, like, I was maybe like 170 pounds, but I played like, I was a big dude, and just running through them and just dragging people and outrunning them. They like, bro, like, you that dude, bro. Like, at the end of the day, I got my respect from every team we played against, because they knew that I was a game plan, but especially having big games against teams that had guys that was going D1 and, putting up numbers against them and getting that respect. It's like, yeah, bro, like, you like that. So again, like, I can tell you a few games where I had 300 yards rushing, some picks, some touchdowns on both sides of the ball, kick return for touchdown, punt returns the same game. So I done had a few games where I done scored on offense, defense, and special teams. So yeah, it's kind of hard.
No, it's okay. It's okay, because I love asking that question, and it's kind of hard because you had a great career. And speaking of that, that career took notice. Well, the college coaches took notice, I should say. And I remember talking with Lauren, because he stayed at my apartment. We lived in Fairfax at the time when he first got the job. He told me, he prophesied what he was going to do with you and so many young men there, because you had some guys that went to the Naval Academy. Again, college isn't for everybody, but Lauren's job in his mind was to get you guys exposure, prepared mentally, physically, as well as spiritually. And he also wanted to put you guys in position to live out your dream. And you, Ryan Williams, and so many guys got that opportunity, but this is your legacy spotlight. You mentioned Clemson. I know you were getting recruited, and I know that feels good, because you get that offer. It's like, man, okay, and all of a sudden you get another offer.
Mm-hmm.
So you became one of the top players, not just in Virginia, but in the DMV, DC,
right.
Maryland, and Northern Virginia, and the state. Who came calling, and who did you sign with? Because a lot of people don't know your story, because everybody knows, oh yeah, Chris Garrett of Ohio.
Yeah.
There's a backstory to that, bro.
So my first offer came from Temple. And then from there, it just rolled downhill. Coach Edsall from Connecticut.
Edsall.
Yeah, my bad.
Sorry.
They offered me. Connecticut offered me. And then it literally just opened the floodgates from there. So then me and my dad, we went down for my official visit to Clemson. And back then it was, it was just like, I feel like that's where I need to be. So after the visit, like they offered me on the spot. And it was one of those things where like they pretty much was like, hey, you like what you can do, like we can really use you in our offense and in our special team game because you're fast and you're durable. Even though back then, so once I got that offer, and I told my dad, I was like, I'm signing, I'm going. He's like, wait, he's like, just relax a little bit. I was like, nah, like this is where I want to go. So once I signed there, and those that know, and that was around that time, it's articles on that, me signing, national letter of intent. So for a little while, that's what I was committed to, and I had high praise for that. But the only thing about it is that I had to get my test scores up to actually pass the clearinghouse. So like back then, I don't know how it is now because everything's changed kind of a little bit, but they could sign you before you kind of clear, or it's like that gray area. So when I took the ACT and SAT, I didn't get good enough scores on my SAT, but I got it on my ACT. But it's one of those things where I had a big jump. So they was like, nah, take it again. So I'm like, okay. So once I took it again, the scores didn't it dropped. So they was like, nah, we're going to take the lesser score. So I had another opportunity. So they was like, hey, you got to go to summer school to get these grades up. If you do that, you're going to go to Clemson University and do all that other stuff. I'm like, all right, cool. So I didn't do my part, and I didn't actually get the grades I need to get. So long story short, I didn't end up going to Clemson, but then I went to Fork Union Military Academy. And, it's one of the things where and right after that, I got offered, before that, I got offered by Ohio. And my thing was Coach Soldier's there, and I knew all about him at Nebraska. So my thing was I want to play for him because he knows about football and he wants to run the ball. So just one of those things where going to military school, it kind of helped me get a little more discipline, and it really made me understand what I was doing with my life at that point, because Coach Johnson, my dad, they can only steer me so much to where I got to figure stuff out on my own. But just going that route to military school and just understanding that schoolwork is important, getting a clear understanding that schoolwork I need to get that stuff done in order to play ball. So going from there, in my head, and on that team, I had it was about 43 of us. 42 of us went D1, and my roommate at the time, Jacoby Ford, he actually ended up going to Clemson, and then he had a pro career and got drafted by the Raiders, so on and so forth. But when I came out of military school, my thing is I'm supposed to be at Clemson, so I'm hot, and I'm not supposed to be at Ohio and all the other stuff. So I played angry, and I'll never forget to this day. Coach Soles told me, he was like, look, we don't have we already got to start a running back, so you kind of got to find your way, or you want redshirt. my thing is like, I'm not redshirt because I'm supposed to be somewhere bigger in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
So, he was like, look, you can do return game. So, all right, I took that as a challenge. And that year, I was a freshman All-American as a returner. And then I think the reason why because I played angry and I played to the point where I felt like I was supposed to be somewhere different. And everyone thinks like, oh, you just went to Ohio, but it's like, no, I signed to go to Clemson first, but this is where I'm at. So my thing is like, I didn't cry over spilled milk. It was one of those things where I took what I was given and I just ran with it, and the rest is history,
And I can respect that, man. I mean, you did your thing at Ohio. I saw you play a few times on television, and I can respect that too because I mean, you would have been at Clemson. Jacoby Ford, who I still remember, was a playmaker, and Clemson's offense was wide open, even back then before Dabo. But at the same time, and I know your dad told you this without knowing it, but I'm willing to say he did. God has a plan. And it's not like you were less of a player. I do think your story is a testimony of, and it's good my son will see this and other young men and young ladies will see this, is that you got to take care of some of the things because when you know you're talented and you expect greatness, you got to also take care of the academics, some of the things that could get in the way of you reaching your goals. But at the same time, it's a life lesson you can still pass on to the people you train and mentor. But you went to Ohio and you had a great career, man. I mean, right? I mean, just talk about your time in Ohio, even though you played angry, which I actually could tell that from the television. Because I remember when you played my Hokies, I said, this dude, Chris, playing like he hate everybody in Blacksburg. Like you were talking after every little play you made.
Yeah.
I remember. And I didn't see you play like that at Stonewall. I mean, you talked. But it just seemed like now that I hear this in your legacy spotlight, you had a chip on your shoulder. But just talk about your time, like the moments you had when you were playing collegiately.
So basically, right off the bat, from our freshman campaign, being a freshman All-American, that set me up to be one of the dominant players in my conference, let alone in the nation. So my thing was like, again, I'm always thinking ahead. Whatever I do in the moment, I'm supposed to do that. So I'm just like, all right, cool. But my thing is like playing with a chip kind of helped me along the way because, I was a fiery dude, but I feel like every step of the way I had to prove myself. And on top of that, anybody that plays football at a high level, like you passionate and then it's a lot of emotion involved. So it's one of those things where that new level, I had to basically recreate myself. And I had to let people know, even though, sometimes like now, like you want to just let your game speak for itself. But back then I wanted to dominate you and I wanted to talk to you about it a little bit. So it's one of those things like in high school, like I was supposed to do that. In college, everybody's good. So it's like, yeah, I'm going to talk a little junk afterwards because they doing the same thing. So it's one of the things where like, again, I know what I wanted to do with my career and what I did, spoke volumes on how I prepared. So, of course, I'm passionate and I'm emotional about what I'm doing. So if I have a good run or if I run you over or if I block you and pancake you, you're going to know about it, So that's one of the things, just my time at Ohio, it taught me a lot about perseverance because, going from where I was and where I signed to go at Clemson and to be at a mid-major school at Ohio and still getting, playing good football there, it taught me a lot about bouncing back and just basically, just believing in myself because, just going and playing all 4 years and playing receiver, my freshman and sophomore year, and then being the feature back my junior and senior year, just doing different things in the dynamic, playing for Ohio, that really, helped me, navigate. And as far as like taking new roles and just, trying to, excel at them, which I did. So I think, all 4 years taught me a little bit about myself as a person, because Coach Solich put a lot on me and he didn't have to because there's other players that were, that kind of fit the build for, the position or for what they wanted, but they put a lot of trust in me because of the approach that I took to the game and how serious I was and like how much I was a student. And it's one of those things where, you know, he put a lot on me. And when I answered that bell, it's like to get that acceptance from a Hall of Fame coach and for him to say a couple words and we're on the same, you know, page, you know, that put a lot of trust in me too, because he was one of the things where he always told me, when you return these punts, I want you to feel every single one of them. And we're not fair catching. So when he instilled that in me, yeah. So it was one of those things where it'd be dudes in my face. He's like, you've been not fair catching. Because guys are expecting you to do that. So you catch it, you split it. Now you got 10 yards. So, you know, my time at Ohio taught me a lot about perseverance and just overcoming, you know, obstacles that, you know, that were there that I felt like that could have stopped me, but I persevered through them.
Yeah, well, you know, and you persevered and you shine. You also kept a legacy. You know, yesterday you went into the Hall of Fame at Unity Reed High School. You and Raymond G, whose rushing record stood for 20 plus years. And then you have Ryan Williams, who went to Virginia Tech and led the ACC in rushing. Then years later, you have Reggie Floyd, Greg Stroman, Tim Settle. A lot of Unity Reed Stonewall guys. You got Sean Murphy, who's there now going to Alabama. Amari Campbell has offers from Maryland and William and Mary. You can go even further and further back in time. Unity Reed / Stonewall has always had talent. So what I like to always remind people of, some people know, and I remind people of, as much as you can talk about everybody and guys I didn't name and the guys I did name, you are in that mix. So despite the disappointment not going to Clemson, which I don't blame you. I mean, Clemson, I played against Clemson. I've seen that entrance. They're right there with Virginia Tech with their pregame game interest coming down, touching that rock, 80,000 strong, the orange. I mean, they are the class of college football along with Alabama. At the same time, it's not like you were short-sighted, and it's not like you didn't see your vision and didn't come to fruition, because you still did your thing at Ohio, All-American. You played like you did in high school right away, which, again, I want to remind people, very, very difficult to play, especially on the D1 level right away. And then you get there, and now you are in a situation where you can go to NFL. And now you're talking about the elite of the elite, right? So you got this guy's really good. Now you in your career, and there's interest from the NFL. And at this point, I will be honest with you, I would talk to your dad. He would give me updates when I saw him around Manassas, but I didn't really know where you were at with that. So this will be good for me and the viewers to hear this part. What actually happened? Because you were a Canadian football Grey Cup champion. You set records there. You did great work there. But like everybody, including myself, the first goal is the NFL, right? So what happened with that?
So coming out of college, I wasn't drafted, but I was an undrafted free agent with the Buccaneers. So I spent some time down in Tampa, did a rookie training camp, got through that, went through a little bit of training camp. And it was one of the things where we had 7 running backs, and I was a new guy to the team. So, and like they had a guy that was similar build, same thing. And then that's when we had Cadillac. And So like he ain't had to do anything. It was just like, cause they paid him all that money. So they're going to protect the investment. So it's one of the things where, you know, like going through training camp and doing good things. And at the time, Coach Raheem Morris, you know, talking to him, you know, he was like, hey, we like you, but, you know, it's a numbers game. So it's one of the things where, like, you know, we're going to let you go, but make sure you stay ready because anything can happen. So my thing is like, okay, I go back to the crib. I know I'm probably going to be back with them, you know, whether it's after the preseason or, I mean, after you know, after they make the final cuts, whatever. So literally 2 days after I got back home, I got a call from my agent. He was like, hey, you want to play in Canada? And I was just like, what you mean Canada? Because I'm like, what you mean? Is that professional? He's like, yeah, man. Like, you know, and he told me some of the, you know, stipulations and all that stuff. And I was like, and he was like, basically, bro, like, you got to stay in shape, because if not, if you sit out looking at you like a dude off the street and they don't want that. So I was like, all right, man, I'll go play in Canada. And it's one of the things where, like, as soon as I got up there, you know, I was a GM guy, but not the coach's guy. So, I would get in there, have a 20-yard run. They'd be like, nah, all right, pull them out. And the funny thing about it is, like, my first year there, they actually cut me, right?
What?
They cut me, put me on practice roster. Yeah. So yeah, it's crazy, but they cut me, put me on practice roster, and then I got another opportunity towards the end of game. Towards the end of the season game, they put me out there, and I had over 100 yards rushing. They're like, okay, but mark this, they end up cutting me. After the season, they cut me again. So then I missed, the following season, I missed the whole training camp, and I missed a couple of games. So then they called me back. So I'm like low man on the totem pole. I'm third, fourth string, and I remember, that season, things like 2011, the Grey Cup season. I'm sitting in my apartment, and the first string and second string running backs go down, ACL tears. So I'm looking at my other teammate that, we watching the game, like, yo, it just got real. So the following week, I get my start, and I rush for like 95 yards and 2 touchdowns. And now literally from there, and like anybody that knows the CFL, it's a passing league. So in order for you to get over 100 yards rushing, average over 100 yards rushing is pretty good. So literally from there, like, I averaged over 100 yards rushing for like the final 6 games. So I was on pace to rush for over 2,000 yards in that league. But it was one of those things where, it was a Grey Cup year, and like people see what I could do. And it was almost like, wow. And again, I played angry because I'm supposed to be in the league. I'm supposed to be in the NFL. So I'm thinking like, man, what I'm doing in the NFL, in the CFL, in the passing league, imagine what I can do behind a good offense line, and it's in the NFL, and it's a little bit more condensed league. But it's one of those things where I hit the ground running, and my career took off. And that following season in training camp, I tore my my Achilles, so I didn't play the 2012 season. But I came back. It took me like 9 months to rehab, and I was running and cutting on all that good stuff. But I remember the following season after that, I got released by them, and then I got picked up by Saskatchewan, and I ended up playing with them, and same thing, rushed for 100. My first game, I had over 100 yards rushing, receiving touchdown, and it was one of the things because at that time I was considered a vet because I've been in the league for a little bit, but just making that transition and trying to learn the playbook, off basically just on the run, I picked it up, and I was implemented early on because I knew the game. But just, it's one of those things where it was a great experience, but just playing in the CFL, knowing that I had a little bit of NFL experience and knowing that I should have been there would kind of fuel me to play even harder because I wanted to get back to that stage. But, it didn't happen, but, I was thankful that I still play professional and I still have a story to tell these kids like, hey, you can still make it. It's just one of those things where you just gotta, bounce back because things ain't gonna go your way, but how do you respond?
No doubt. And I had Lucky Whitehead on here of about 3 weeks ago on doing his Legacy Spotlight, and he was in NFL for a few years. It did his thing with the Cowboys. Some things happened, and he went to CFL, and he's been killing it. And I talked to him during the show and talked to him off air. And as much as he misses the league and he may get a chance to get back, he was loving the CFL. And
it's fun.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, did you have the same sentiments? Was it, did you love it too?
Man, I love it, bro. Like it's cool because how we view NFL players, that's how the Canadians view CFL players. So I remember going places, people staring at me, ask for pictures, and just having that little bit of celebrity. People wearing my jerseys, and just different stuff. It's like, man, like this ain't that bad. So for Lucky to experience that, like I'm already hit because I went through that, and I still get that. Where I actually had a friend that contacted me yesterday, and like they were saying like, hey, I was just at a Bomber game, Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and like I seen tons of people wearing your jersey still. So in order,
wow,
for me to hear that, yeah, that's crazy. So at the end of the day, it's like what I did left an impact, and people still appreciate that. And that's just that speaks volumes, man. Like that's an undescribable feeling, really.
Well, no, and it's something you should appreciate because people do take notice. Besides me, I've taken notice your whole career, but I think what I admire you most is you didn't complain, because honestly, you should have got another chance or stayed in the league. I mean, there are a lot of guys like you who like, man, this happened, or the coach didn't get fired, or I was the GM's guy. But you never, ever complained about it. Even when I saw you come back home training in the offseason, it was all love. It was more so like, I got to grind, I got to focus. You know, some guys walk around, man, they tripping, man. They hating on me, or I'm done, or they lose sight. But you never lost sight. And that's a credit to your drive and your passion, as well as, you know, your dad, right?
I credit my dad.
Yeah.
Because my thing, yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no. He's the kind of guy like, okay. And he grew up in a different era to where how he molded me mentally is one of those things where, what are you gonna do? If you cry about it, what is it gonna help you do? Nothing. So at the end of the day, like, while you sitting there crying about something that happened to you, how you gonna respond? Like, you can't, like, nobody cares about like your emotions about what happened to you. People care about, well, the right people care about how you gonna bounce back. So for him telling me that years and years and years, so what, you didn't get that? What you gonna do to get it back? Or even if you don't get it back, what are you gonna do to live out or to be fulfilled? And I feel like still playing football fulfilled, you know, me, you know, being at that next level, still playing with high caliber guys. And trust me, I wanted to get back to the league, but it's one of those things where I can't worry about that, because the more I'm worrying about that, I'm missing out on what's in front of me. So it's one of those things where, like, you know, if it's meant for me, it's going to be there, but I'm worrying about what I can control. And that's how I prepare myself mentally, physically, and again, spiritually to.
Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. We had some technical difficulties, but we're back at it. Chris, you were talking about the mindset the father you got from your father, and just how you were focused, and you never stopped giving in to disappointment and adversity. Actually, it makes you stronger. As your career was coming to an end, how did it come about? Was it a situation in which, you know, injuries, or you were ready to do something else? I mean, what happened? Because you were in your prime, and then all of a sudden I saw you and you starting your new phase of your life. What happened?
Well, after my 2012, well, I take it back. The 2011 season, where I actually went to the Grey Cup with Winnipeg, and we ended up losing. The season after that, I ended up getting hurt. I tore my Achilles, and last day of training camp before we had our first game, and I sat out the whole season. And then I had a lot of time to think, and I was trying to figure out my next move, because, you know, I played football for over 20 years, you know, from 6 years old all up to, like, you know, my mid, you know, late 20s. And it was at a point where, you know, just taking that toll playing running back, you know, it's a car collision every play. So, you know, just having that whole year to get my mind right and just, you know, just think about my next move. I took rehab really hard. I actually got back quicker, and the following season, in 2013, that's when I got picked up by Saskatchewan, and, you know, I played for them, picked up their scheme, you know, quickly, you know, played at a fast pace. And it was one of those things where I had the option to go back and play or basically do my own thing. And I thought about it, and I was just like, man, I could play and make a little bit more money and, you know, just keep abusing my body essentially. And it took, trust me, man, it took everything in me to be like, you know, I'm going to sit this one out. I'm going to sit it out for good. And matter of fact, you know, I haven't retired yet, because I always gave myself that little open door. Like, I could go back, I get that itch, but then I start remembering how my body used to feel when I would wake up.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, man, do you really want to go through that? So it's one of the things where it's like, you know, I would train in the off season and just doing certain things as far as to get my body ready for next season. And I actually, you know, my degree is health sciences with a minor in business management. So I was like, I learned about the, you know, anatomy and like exercise and physiology and all that other stuff in college. So why not, you know, put it together? So long story short, you know, it was one of the things I was like, man, I want to become a trainer. And everybody that I told that to, like, it was teammates and stuff. They was like, trainer? oh, now here you go. You want to now you want to do something else. Yeah, bro. Like I think last time I played football, I was maybe like 27, I think. So I was pretty young, but on a football scale, getting up there.
Yeah.
But at the same point, it's just like I had to make that move, and I felt like it was all God's timing. Like for him to put that thought process in my brain, like, hey, you wanted to play at a high level, I gave it to you. Now I think you need to do something different, because I feel like if I would have played another year, I probably did well, but who knows what would happen. But I know I think I got out at the right time. And, I opened my business. It started slow because people knew me as a football player, and I didn't get a lot of respect as a trainer because, back, it's about like 8-9 years ago now, almost 10, people, like everybody was getting into that whole trend of training and all that stuff, ex-athletes and stuff. And it's like, I had to make myself different because, everybody's doing it, but I'm really serious about it. So it took me years for people to respect me as a trainer and not just as an athlete. So
let me just say this for everybody watching. I'm gonna say this to you directly. You and I've talked, several times off the air about your grind, your process, and your professionalism. And you keep it humble, but you also understand and know what you're doing. And the training business is cutthroat. And I'm gonna tell everybody watching, if you want a professional trainer who knows what he's doing, because you got into a business, man, with people out here grabbing tennis balls and speed ladders and telling you to drink milkshakes that end up getting you in violation of a health code or, something like that, where it's against the rules. You actually have the educational background and insight to help kids. You know how to help, with recovery, and also to improve speed bursts, and also work with not just high school, middle school, and youth, but also elderly and upper middle classes, lower middle class. It doesn't matter. You can work with anybody and everybody, right? You know what I'm saying? Like you would agree, right? I know you're in the humble right now, but you would agree you have that skill set, right? Yeah. Now let me ask you this, Chris, because you never mentioned this to me, because I remember I saw you home and you were like, I'm getting ready to do this, and you were talking about getting your building, which you're in right now. But I've had a lot of people on this show, all great people, men and women. With that being said, one thing they've told me on this show, and they've told me even off the record, as far as like without recording, that after they were done playing, they went through a transitional phase. For some people, they got really depressed because you just said it yourself. You had been playing basically for 20 years.
Yeah.
And football, like boxing and maybe hockey, it ends abruptly. Like you can still play tennis professionally for charity events. You can just play to play. Basketball, you can still play in adult leagues, 50 and older. If you don't make it to the NBA, you can play in the G League or play overseas. And, we saw that with Stephon Marbury. Football, when it's over, and even though it was on your terms, you talked about your body and how it was affecting you. You didn't have CTE, but it was affecting you. It ends abruptly, and you have to transition into corporate America where you're like, okay, I have this degree. Am I going to work here? Am I going to go here? Am I going to go back to school, to grad school? A lot of young men and women go through a depressive state because it's tough finding your way. Did you ever have any challenges mentally as far as just trying to figure you out, just, some disappointment, like, okay, it's over now. What do I do now? I know you had your training plan and regimen in your mindset, but did you go through a tough phase that a lot of young men and women do after their career ends?
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely. Like I said, coming off of that high year in 2011 where I was killing it, and we lost a Grey Cup, and that's when I was playing for Winnipeg. But the depression didn't start until like 2012 when I tore my Achilles. From there, just having a whole year of just seeing, how football really was when like you wasn't the dude running for 100 yards or you doing all this stuff, and see how people treat you. It's like, it's a humbling experience because people still, they know you, but they don't respect you in that same light because you can't do what you did at a high level no more. So I think, honestly, Vic, I was depressed for about 3 years, maybe 4.
Really?
The reason why I'm saying that, because it's like and you know this, like when you play football for so long and like you just been, you're just at it and like you almost got a regimen and you kind of stop it. And now it's like you haven't been really working on other traits that can, kind of ease you into, another passage essentially. Basically, I put all my eggs in one basket. And when I got to the point where I didn't want to do it no more, it's almost like, bro, you haven't been doing nothing in the off season, but just trying to get focused for another season. So just trying to figure out that, training is the right step. Like it took, late nights, early mornings, like trying to figure things out. Or no, maybe I should do this. Or I'll ask my dad, like, hey, what should I do? And his thing was like, hey, I can't tell you what to do. Only thing I can tell you is like, make sure that you plan and you just execute. And that's how my dad always did stuff. It was almost like Master Splinter type thing. Like, I'm not going to tell you the answer, but I'll leave breadcrumbs. And if you pick it up, you pick it up. If not,
sounds just like your dad.
So going through that and just bouncing ideas off of him, it was the point where like, man, when you getting like one person to train and then people are flaking and then you got bills to pay and there's other things going on, you're like, dang, but when I was playing, man, I was making big bank. And now it's like, you ain't making nothing close to it. How you going, so, just the whole financial, just how people see you. It's like, you don't want to talk about football no more because why aren't you playing? It's like, I don't feel like it. And people don't understand that haven't played at a high level or that haven't been through that. Like, I don't want to do it no more because my body is just, I'm tired. So just trying to navigate through my emotions, through my financial, and just really understanding who I am without football. That took some time. And I didn't really want to be around certain people. I didn't want to go out certain places. I was just really like a hermit crab because, again, I didn't want people to ask me questions. And I didn't want to just be out there and I feel like people looking at me a certain way. So it took some time to get over it. But once I got over it, man, like, I opened my facility, about 4 years ago. And I got over my depression, I think maybe about a year. It was like on that cusp between like when like I started training your kids. Like, you wouldn't even know it. I was high and upbeat, but inside it was like, man, I feel like I'm fulfilling myself, but I feel empty. But it's like, why? Because I don't think I never let that, like I never put it to rest, the right way. Like I said, I didn't retire because I kind of like was 1 foot in, 1 foot out. So that's the reason why I felt like I never really like accepted it. But just having the success as far as seeing the kids that I've helped in my small, short period of time, that I've helped them realize, that they're much more than what they really are. And that's the reason why I call my business The Deal Fitness, because it's not me. I'm not saying I'm the deal. I'm saying you are the deal and you're working. It's obviously fitness, but it's just one of those things where when I started seeing more people come to me because I knew that I was genuine about what I was doing. And I'll never forget this. Like my grandmother, she's another entrepreneur. And she's in New York also. Like she had her own beauty supplies, beauty salon, and she's also was a real estate. And just, having her say like, in life, you're gonna have a lot of lessons. Now, what you do with those lessons, that's on you. Now, you're going to have people that's going to look at you different ways. Now, how they look at you, it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is just how you produce yourself to them. And if you're comfortable with it, don't worry about it. So just take that off that little insert, just how I produce myself to people like, I want to help you. And I want, like, this is what I do. And it took some time for people to get to that point to, the respect factor, and a lot of that kind of led to, the depressive state too, because you want somebody to believe in you because you believe in yourself. You're like, nah. But then it got to that point where it's like, hey, you just got to let go and just do what you think you're supposed to do, and everything gonna work out. And I promise you, man, like every year I get bigger and I get more people. And my thing is, literally it's almost like I've helped quite a few people, but I feel like I haven't done what I'm supposed to do entirely just yet. And I feel like that has, the more I paid attention to the people that I've helped and the people that they've let know that I've helped them, that kind of fulfilled me, because it's one of the things where like I want to help people, give back as much as I can. And, just to have basically have, my spirit and just my physical and my mental being occupied by what I'm doing. And I think it's like I'm moving in the right direction to where now I'm not depressed. And I feel like I can reach out to some ex-athletes and some of my own teammates that have reached out to me. Like, they asked for like workouts and stuff. And I feel honored. Like, I don't even charge them. I'll be like, hey, this is on the house because, we boys, man, like we family for life. And they be like, nah, I'm gonna throw you something. Like, bro, look, it's deeper than money, bro. Like, I'd rather have you here than to go to a funeral and you only in your mid-30s. And I've had teammates die already. And I'm So, it's one of the things where now they see me in that figure. So a lot of it is ego, I'm an alpha male. Like I like to be out there, but in the light that I'm doing, it's not like me. It's more like, look at what I'm doing for this person, or, look how I'm helping this person, because I don't make people. I just help them realize their potential, or just to see people come in here that's like weight loss clients that's kind of intimidated because they see the workouts that I do. And once they see me and like they talk to me as a person, that's something else that someone else is entrusting in me that I can help change their life. Like everything what I did with football is very small, because like you asked me stuff about, what I did in high school, college, middle school, all that good stuff. It's like, I got to like think back like, oh yeah, I did do that. But I'm more proud of my high school kids that they're taking the stuff that I taught them and to the game. And then I go out there and see them play, and like they see me in the sidelines and they're just like ecstatic, like they're happy. And I'm saying to myself like, dang, I made an impact. Or again, like I have, weight loss clients, and like just to see that they're actually reaching their goals, and they're just like, I can't thank you enough. Some of the stuff, like I'm not gonna cry, but some of the stuff, it does, it can bring a tear to your eye, because you're literally saving someone's life, not necessarily catching the football, scoring a touchdown, but you're actually going outside of, I'm going outside of what I used to do so well, and I'm doing something completely different, and I'm excelling in it. So, I think what I'm doing is definitely fulfilling me. And the whole depressive state, it was a time, but I think I'm out of the woods. But life is life, things come up. But I think what I'm doing now, I'm mentally, more centered, and I'm more okay with myself, because I don't have to be, like I was when I was in my early 20s. Like I'm okay being in the background, and just trying to run a business. So
yeah. What's crazy, Chris, and it's not crazy like psychotic. It's just crazy because it's amazing how the journey ends up. The last shall be first and things like that. Not that you will ever last, but some people start off with a boom and they're on top, and then they fizzle out. You're like, hey, what happened to such and such? And what's she doing now? Because they only have one lane. And I've been teaching for decades the importance of having a transitional plan, not just for athletes, for everyone. And that's why people say, oh man, with Vicktory Life, you do this, you do that. What don't you do? I said, I'm not going to limit myself. And you are now in that same lane where you're not going to limit yourself. And I'm proud of you. And I speak for a lot of people watching this interview who are proud of you. And it's only the beginning. It's only the beginning, man. And it's great that I see the videos on IG and Facebook of not just the student athletes, but also the middle, upper age people, or the elderly, or people in their 40s and 50s working out. It's good. It's inspiring, and I love it. And I'm glad that people are part of the Deal Fitness legacy and the business, the brand. Real quick, for those watching this, maybe their first time seeing this, because I have people that subscribe to my YouTube channel. How can they find you? Where you located? Website, IG, all of that, so everyone can know. I'm gonna put it in the write-up, but I also want people to be able to hear it right now.
Got you. Well, my location is 10521 Croatia Way, Manassas, Virginia. If you don't know how to use a GPS system, if you're in the Manassas area, it's right off of Sudley Road. If you know where the Barnes & Noble bookstore is, I'm right across the street from there. Everybody should know that for the most part. But my Instagram handle is The Deal Fitness, all one word, or at The Deal Fitness. On Facebook, you can find me at The Deal Fitness. Email is thedealfitness@gmail.com. Trying to think if I'm leaving. Oh, I'm sorry. Twitter is The Deal Fitness also. So all my social media handles is The Deal Fitness. And if you wanted to text or call, my business phone is 315-272-0129. Don't be afraid, to contact me, because at the end of the day, like, we're all people, and I won't bite. So yeah, I think. Oh,
What's that?
I said, I think I covered it all as far as.
Yeah, you did. So Chris, we're at the portion of the show where I allow my guests to give their final thoughts. You gave some inspiring words. You opened up about challenges you overcome, from injuries to also not getting to Clemson but still having a huge impact at Ohio. You were a great player at Unity Reed, formerly known as Stonewall Jackson High School. You're helping a lot of guys and ladies throughout Prince William County and Fairfax County. You're doing work at Osborne Park High School. You are definitely embodying what Vicktory Life Legacy is all about. I love it. And, to know you as a young man, I know, like I said, I speak for a lot of people. This is exciting. But at the same time, I want you to share some final thoughts as we wrap up your legacy spotlight to all the young men and women, even adults watching this show, on how to keep pushing, the importance of fighting through adversity and all the life lessons you've learned so far on your journey. What feedback do you have for them to help them reach their goals, whether it's an entrepreneur, a graduate degree, losing 20 pounds, just becoming a better father? What advice do you have for them based on your life's experiences?
Well, I'll be lying if I said that, I figured it out by myself. Again, I know it seems, repetitive, but, a lot of kudos goes to my dad, because the way that he taught me about life and how to deal with it, some people might like, well, I could, they don't understand it, but that's the reason why I'm the way I am now. But just to get into it, it's one of those things where, he always told me to write my goals down, no matter what it is, whether it's long-term, short-term, write them down. And that's something that has helped me tremendously. And trust me, Dwight, and it's crazy because I'm like, my mom actually showed me something. I was in second grade, and they asked, how like when you're a kid, they ask, oh, what you gonna be? What you gonna do?
Mm-hmm.
I witnessed everything I wrote down, like, came true. And it's crazy. I mean, it ain't crazy, but it's one of the things where, even as a kid, like, both my parents kind of helped me with that. But later on, my dad, he really, kicked it into high gear. So it's one of the things where he always taught me to write my goals down, put them somewhere where I can see them every day. And early on, I'm like, I ain't doing that. But then when I would see him down there, like his office, where he would have stuff written and written down about what he's going to do. And I was always wondering, like, how does he always do things? Or how does he always, and it's one of the things, it's easy. Like, when you're driven, or when you have, a goal in mind, it's real easy to just to fly off the whim and not really write it down. And that's how you lose focus, because it's not in front of you. And we think about 1,000 things in a day. So if you think about your goals, next thing you think, like, man, I'm hungry, or I want to go over here. Now you're going to try to weigh the pros and cons, like, yeah, I'm gonna go do this, and then now you're getting close. I mean, you're getting further away from your goals. So basically, what I'm trying to say is, like, the reason why, I mentioned my dad in that aspect, because I didn't want to gym, but I had to write down the business plan, and I had to write down what I wanted, and I weighed the pros and cons about being a traveling trainer, and it was like, it makes more sense to have my own facility. So I literally worked out my plan, and and just going backwards to where I was at the moment. And it's funny because when I was training your kids, I was in the process of trying to find, and I think I told you, I was like,
you told me that.
And I don't tell people my goals and dreams, like, and that's something too. Like, my dad always told me, you don't tell people what you're working on until it's done. So I know that you're a really, 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 really good guy, and I look at you like you're a big brother. And anything you say, I'm always open there. I don't care if you're talking to me about, anything. I'm listening. So it's one of the things where I bounced it off of you. And he was like, yeah, man, that's a good idea. You know, we had that conversation. And then fast forward a few months, it's like, hey, Dwight, I got my, and then now you brought your kids in. And it's one of those things where for me to mention that to you and for it to come to fruition, it's almost like, I feel like you respect my word and what I say, I'm gonna do. So I know I'm like encompassing everything, but my thing is, if it's for weight loss, if it's like you want to get stronger, faster, whatever may be the case, or you know, you just want to, you know, transition in life, a lot of it is having a good support system. And even if you don't have that, it's like, you know, you got to find God, because it's nothing wrong with having a conversation with God. And some people may say like, well, I don't believe in that. It's like, well, my thing is like, how do you think manifestation comes into it? You know, whether you believe in a higher power or not. So my thing is like, we all have the same 24 hours in a day, and we all have, you know, we all can write, we all have reason. Because if not, then now we'd be in special care. But my thing is like, it takes nothing but a little bit of time to write down what's important to you and to put it somewhere where you can see it every single day, so that when you do feel like, damn, I'm not making no strides, or damn, I'm getting close, I don't know where I'm at as far as what my goals are, you can look at that and be like, hey, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Every day is not going to be roses, but the days that you're doing something small, working towards your goal, in the end, you will get it, or you will get closer to it. And my thing is, I'd rather be closer to it than not being close at all. So my thing is just like, you know, you just got to just write your goals down and having small steps in place to work towards them. So that way that you stay focused and you have a purpose in what you're doing. And I just want to add this one thing into also. And I do the same thing with my clients, you know, whether they're older than me or they're younger than me, I sit them down and I ask them, what are their goals? And a lot of people saying like, I don't have the support system and all this stuff. So I always extend myself out there, because whenever you make an investment, it's not just about, you know, the physicalness. Like I try to, you know, get them out to the point where, you know, if you don't have that outlet, I can be that person to help you out, because I know how hard it is, you know, to reach certain goals by yourself. So, you know, just to wrap it all up, you know, it's just one of the things where, you know, just write your goals down and just make them realistic so that you can, you know, work towards them and make your dreams into reality.
Yes. Well said, man. And I love the fact that you said write down your goals. I'm a believer in that too. I do it. I tell my 3 children to do it. They look at me crazy. And I say, hey, it works. You hear a lot of successful people, they do that. And you are definitely embodying success. Shout out to you, Chris. I have a lot of respect for you. I'm honored to be part of your journey. I'm honored for you and your dad to be the people you are, and also to have you on your legacy spotlight here with Vicktory Life. This has been a lot of fun. It's been very inspiring and very insightful. You and I have had conversations, but I've learned a lot more about you, and I'm blessed by that experience. I'm also a believer in faith. I believe you have to step out on faith and believe in trusting yourself and trusting God. So thank you again, Chris. And I just want to tell everybody, check this guy out, especially if you're in Prince William, Northern Virginia. He's one of the best. I've had my kids go to him. Other players in Prince William County are going to him, Northern Virginia, Fairfax, the surrounding areas. He's easy to get in contact with. He gave you his information. And to all the people that check out Vicktory Life, if you want to keep supporting us, you know, subscribe to the YouTube channel, Vicktory Life. Also, make sure you check us out on the other social media platforms. Again, on behalf of the Deal Fitness and all the different things we have going on, I want to thank all the people that support Chris Garrett, his family, his friends, his clients. This will run soon, so please support his business. A young man out here doing it. Like I say every episode, no matter where you go, no matter what you do, make sure you have a positive impact and you leave a great legacy. That's Vicktory Life. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate you, boss.
Thank you. And thank you for having me on Vicktory Life, man. Thank you.
Yes, sir.